Hello and welcome to Deliberately Creative. I'm Stephanie and I'd like to welcome you to episode 44 of Doodlegems. This episode we are doing Caymanite, and it was another community request. Come on with me, I'll show you how easy this really is. So we're going to get started here on the Caymanite. And it's a pretty earthy stone. It has lovely stripes and it's done in really deep, rich type earth tones. But to start off, we're going to put the setting in. And the setting, we're doing this with a teardrop shaped cabochon. Like that. Could be a mouse, could be all kinds of things. This one is going to end up being a little fishy because Caymanite comes from the Cayman Islands. And I figured since we're doing something that comes from the islands, we should do something that comes from the sea. Now this is an imaginary fishy. And I'm giving him a lovely swirly looking tail. We're doing a big swirl. And then each swirl afterwards, we're going to touch the tip of the swirl before. And look how they just stack right in there, just like a little tail. And I'm going to go ahead and put a couple little leafy shapes in. Almost like a little flower at the back end of his tail. He's swimming through the ocean and having a lovely time. We're going to go ahead and get that top fin. It's going to be some of those leafy type shapes again because they flow so nicely into each other, and they get smaller and smaller as we're going down, and they can lay down towards his back just like that. But I want him to have a little attitude, so he's going to have a couple that are flopped forward. He's the Elvis. He's the Elvis of fishies. He's got his little flop over front. And then his little fin that goes underneath here. We won't be showing the gills. We won't be putting an eyeball on here. This is a setting that the stone is sitting inside of. But this fin has some character to it. Gets some long swoopiness. And you notice I don't mind if my hand gets a little wobbly. It's okay. You know, as long as your lines all have the same type of consistency, they can be scratchy, wobbly lines. They can be very precise lines. They can be thick, they can be thin. As long as they are consistent, your whole design looks good. Put a little bit of detail in on these by putting a little center line and then maybe some little hash marks here, almost like feather lines. These aren't feathers, but it's almost like feather lines to give a little bit of detail. I'm not going to be coloring any of the setting. I'm just going to do some of these little tiny details just to make it fun. And that one I think is just going to get mostly all the way down. Down here off the tail. A little bit of detail. That's pretty much it for that. Then coming up here to his little fringe on the front, coming over the top, and his little fin over the top here, along his back. I am going to put a little bit of hash marks going along the underside and part way up the front, along this bottom edge. And then along this top edge here, I am going to actually put those little hash marks on the edge that will be touching the stone, or that's closest to the stone. And the reason why is the light's coming from the top. It's going to strike up here on the top of it. This little edge that's curved will be darker. But then as it comes down, this edge here will have light, and that edge right there will be dark. Now this is my imaginary light, and you can put your things in whatever light you think it's in. But look at that. Cute little setting already done. And I'm going to start off with this putty beige. Now the colors that we're using they're all different earth tones, and it's fun because they're colors that I don't usually use. But I am going to go ahead, and this stone has a little bit of dimension to it, the way it was shaped. So it has a highlight that kind of runs right down the center here. And this putty beige almost fills all of that little wedge that I just drew in, but not completely. I'll be putting more white in that space, so I'm not too worried about making that perfect. I'm going to work this putty beige down the side just a bit. I'm not pressing really hard. This is our first layer of color. And I'm not coloring this all the way down to the bottom edge, because I am going to go ahead and grab the Espresso and lightly color in right over the top of that beige with the Espresso, right over the top of the edge, and work my way down to the edge of the setting. And bring that up just a little bit. So the stone I'm looking at has some definite shape to it. There we go. And now I'll take that putty beige right over the top of the Espresso. I didn't want it on the bottom side because it would have overtaken it too much. And I wanted it to be really dark. But now I'm working that color in just a bit more. And the same on the other end. And that's giving me this smooth gradation. That is a shadow. That is not an actual stripe. The stripes on this are going across. And now the Caymanite, in some places, Caymanite is considered to be a fairly uncommon stone. So that's how I approached it when I first found it. It's a very uncommon stone. They've actually found some stones around the world that are very similar. And it is because it's a type of, let's take a little stripe of this up here too. It is a type of dolomite lime that was laid down 2 to 5 million years ago. And the stone, the dolomite lime, had been infiltrated. Sounds like a spy system or something, but it had been infiltrated with magnesium oxide in a liquid form that filled in and replaced the dolomite. And by doing that, it changed the composition of the stone, but it left the layers. And that was really important. It left these beautiful layers from all of the things that had fallen in the bottom of the ocean. So they'll find fossils in these stones sometimes also. But you get these beautiful reddish browns and creamy browns and creamy beiges. And it's just so pretty. This was a community request. I love community requests. If you have an idea of something you would like to see, leave me a comment. I will write it down in my book. This was written down in my book a few weeks ago. And I wanted to make sure that I knew how to do it well before I shared it on a video. So it took me a little bit of time. I don't always get them, the next week. Depends on the requests, and it depends on the stone that's being requested. And I'm just taking these different colors. So this is the henna. Before that, I was using the Sienna Brown and the Terra Cotta before that. The putty and the espresso. Those are the colors we've been using. So right now I'm still using the henna and putting a layer of color in. And then I think I will take the espresso and put a dark stripe in here too. And these are all warm, natural colors. And I am going to put a bit of this espresso right down in around the setting. It's going to give us some more definition and lift to the stone. It's going to make it just pop right up. And, let's see. We're going to take Sienna Brown again. And lay the sienna right in along the edge. So right now these colors are a little separated. They're not as tightly melded together yet. Now we're going to use the colorless blender and just start blending these colors together. There will be a bit of white used here also. But I wanted to start out with the colorless blender. Go ahead and work that all the way around the edge. Just sticking to my dark area there for a second. Just working that down. And now I'm going to work across, and I'm leaving a few spaces with that bright white. They're going to get a little bit softer around the edges. It's going to end up looking like a highlight without having to even use the white pen there. And depending on how it all looks when we get to that point, we may be using that white Signo Uniball pen. I like it. I like the effect it gives. Look how pretty that's looking. I want to take the Terra Cotta in over a little bit of that henna and warm it up just a bit more. And work a little stripe in here. So you can work these stripes back in where you think it feels right. And I want a little bit more of this dark up here. The layers can be thick, they can be thin, they can be stacked so tightly on each other that you can't even see where the definition is, or they can be so alternated in color that you can see everything. This one's giving you a little bit of both. Take that white pencil and throw a little bit of white onto that highlight and pull it along. And then I'm going to grab a highlight right along this edge and right down that edge there. These soft highlights really can be very effective going across that dark color with that white. It blurs and diffuses, but you can still see the color. A little bit right in that area right there. There we go. And I want that colorless blender again right here. I want to blur this line a little bit more. I'm going to pull it in just a bit. You can just make this look however you want. Like I said, if you have a stone that you would like to see me do, please leave a comment with the stone. If you like this video, I would love to have you click that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already so you can find out when new videos go up. Share the video with your friends. Let them know that these videos are out there. They can learn all about really neat things, like how to make a Caymanite stone in the shape of a fish. All right, so we're going to go ahead and put in our highlights with the Uniball pen. There's going to be just a tiny little highlight up here at the top, kind of at the front where his face is. There's a bit of a highlight coming down his side, and a little bit of a highlight going down his side closer to the tail. There we go. There's not a lot of highlights in this. That's it. That's all it needs. We've got our dark down around the edges. Maybe just a tiny bit more dark. Because what we're doing is we're saying this stone is shaped down the sides that way. That's amazing to me how that works out so nicely. So, I appreciate you hanging out with me. I appreciate you doing this, sharing it. Share it with friends of yours. Share it with me. If you like this video, please click the like button. Subscribe to the channel. Leave me a comment. Let me know, do you have a special stone that you would like to see? Let me know what it is. And share the video with your friends also. You might find someone else who would like to have just a little chill out. Draw something pretty. As always, go out, do something creative, take care of yourself so that you can take care of those around you. Bye-bye.